There are 3 ways that guys are not trimming their neckline correctly. So in order of occurrence, here they are. Starting with number 1, not trimming neck hairs enough is one of the biggest grooming mistakes that I see guys making. Neck hairs start to look scraggly just after a few days of being trimmed. If you have any hair on your face, there is a 100% chance that you have hair creeping down your neck in areas that need to be trimmed and likely trimmed often. So not trimming your neck hairs often enough is an easy mistake to make because it's probably one of the areas on your body that needs to be trimmed the most. So guys don't always have the habit of picking up a trimmer or a razor every couple of days, especially if you have a short beard or stubble. Since you're not trimming anywhere else, it's easy to forget that you need to trim your neck. So I think a general rule of thumb would be, for most guys, probably minimum twice a week would be the time to trim your neck hair. Right now, my neck hair is right on that line where it's definitely time to trim. It's not super long, but it will start to look bad. So it's just getting in that cadence, that frequency of knowing to pick up your trimmer like twice a week to trim those hairs way back down as short as possible. Now there is a huge range of facial hair options that look good on people, but there is actually no length of neck hair that looks good. Whatever your facial hair style, neck hair needs to be at 0. And even the shorter you keep your facial hair, the more often you may need to trim your neck hair just to keep that in check. Longer beards have the benefit of hiding some neck hair that is a little bit too low, but that doesn't mean you're off the hook completely. There still is and should be a well-defined line between your beard and your neck. Okay, so here's the fix. Get a trimmer with a very short cutting blade. This is super important because trimming is way easier than shaving and you're more likely to do it. Plus, there's gonna be way less irritation than with shaving. So get something with a super short blade, kind of like the Beardscape Zero blade, and trim that thing twice a week. So one of the good ways to remember to do this is if you're standing in front of the mirror when you're brushing your teeth, take a look at your neck and see where it's at. If you leave that trimmer sitting out on the counter, it's gonna be accessible and easy. It's just gonna be a few passes, probably less than a 30-second effort to take care of that. And again, doing that when you're brushing your teeth at night is a great time to remember to get that trim in just so you don't forget. Some people ask, is shaving your neck necessary? For me, I would say no. A trimmer that cuts very short, like the Zero blade, will get it really, really close to a shaven look. It's not gonna be quite as close, but I personally don't believe that the effort is worth it when it comes to neck hair. And I think that a trimmer is gonna get you close enough to that kind of ideal, nearly shaven look. Now, if you don't mind shaving, if you like the process, if you don't have sensitive skin, by all means, shave your neck. It's definitely gonna get you shorter. It's probably gonna look a little bit better when it's done. So that is an option, but don't feel like you have to. All right, problem number 2 is trimming your neckline in the wrong place. So to define where your neckline is, you can look at yourself in the mirror, take a finger, and basically run that into your neck. And you're looking for that spot where the flat part of the underside of your chin intersects with the vertical part of your neck. There's usually a pretty well-defined line that's generally just above your Adam's apple, and that's where you want to draw that line and create where that neckline is. And it's definitely the easiest to start right in the middle when you're defining that line. All right, and problem number 3 is making your neckline the wrong shape. So once you have that spot in the middle defined, you then need to figure out up on the upper spot below your ear where that line is going to be. This spot is usually a lot easier to define. For most guys, there's a very natural spot where the hair just drops off and stops growing. If you need a little help figuring that out, your sideburn usually has a fairly vertical line at that spot, and the neckline for your beard hair is going to be around the corner of your jawline. So at the upper point, the neckline can be a little bit behind where that vertical line of the sideburn is. But the trick here then is just having a nice natural rounded arc going between that point that you defined right in the front, just above your Adam's apple, to that spot in the back. Now, when you're trimming and maintaining this line, there is a tendency to kind of creep up and start gouging that area out. You are gonna have to be a little bit aware of this when you're trimming, especially if you do have a shorter facial hair style, because it is easy to trim and keep kind of pushing that line up and up. But one thing that I would note is that you never want to dig too far into that under chin area when you're removing hair. So you're defining that line on purpose. When you're doing your trimming, try and stick with that same line. All right, while we're on this topic, I figured I might as well mention the less offensive facial hair lineup would be your cheek line. And that is a line that is also fairly well defined by your genetics. You usually want to keep that line as high as possible, so as high as your facial hair normally grows. Beyond that line, it's very normal to find a couple straggling hairs that are just a little bit out of place and too high up on your cheeks. There's a couple ways to deal with this. If you have very light skin and dark hair, they're gonna stand out even more. People in that boat probably tend to tweeze or pluck those hairs out just so they kind of completely disappear. I generally just trim those hairs off, and I'm doing this when I'm trimming my neckline, so maybe a couple times a week. You can also shave those as well. So this line should be natural. I've never had any use for these plastic guide thingies that people use. I have seen other tips where you can take some type of non-permanent marker or makeup to draw a line on your cheek first. Check it out in the mirror. I suggest keeping this line as natural as possible to whatever your natural hairline is. So don't do anything straight, geometric, or whatever. Just keep it kind of curved the way your hair is naturally growing, and that's generally gonna be the best look. Just a couple trimming tips when you are trimming your neckline. A couple things I like to do. If you use your non-trimming hand to pull your neck hair tight when you're trimming, it makes those hairs stand up a little bit and makes them easier to cut. It will also change the position of where that line is, so be careful when you're doing that, just so you're not gonna move your skin out of place and then cut someplace where you don't want to. Another tip, use extremely light pressure. If you're using a very short cutting blade, they're sharp, there's a possibility to cut or irritate your skin. I always use extremely light trimming pressure when using a short cutting blade. One other thing to note is that on your neck, you'll find that your hair probably grows in a variety of different directions. You'll generally get the best result with a trimmer if you trim your hair against the grain. So as that grain changes in all the different directions on your neck, try and manipulate the trimmer around and cut in different ways. It's gonna cut shorter and more efficiently with less pressure if you're kind of following against the natural grain of your hair. If I could have you take anything away from this video, I think it's just that you should trim your neck hair more often. So if you do grow any amount of facial hair, grab that trimmer twice a week and keep that line nice and trimmed up. Thanks for watching.